Hello, everyone, and welcome to CCN Coastal Conservative News, where we shine a light on the stories that impact you. My name is Legge.
Hi, and I'm Michelle Pozzie. Thank you for joining us today. Happy Valentine's Day, Allie.
Thank you. And you as well. Guys, did you know that this year it has been reported that Americans have spent $27 billion on Valentines?
That's a lot of money,
Isn't
Allie.
it?
That's
It is a lot of money. Also, a little history lesson. Today's also non-compliance day.
I thought every day was non-compliance day. I got to know about this.
Well, we are non-compliant here at CCN and everywhere else that we are at. But today specifically, St. Valentine actually was marrying people in secret because the king, Claudius, I believe his name was, of Ireland, gave an edict saying that nobody was allowed to be married because they were at a time of war, and he felt like men who were married did not fight as well as men who were not. So St. Valentine decided to marry folks.
That gives it a whole new meaning. Oh, thank you for that, Allie.
You're welcome.
That's good.
Welcome. All right, well, thank you for tuning in. Now let's get started. This is our Week in Review.
There's a lot to discuss this week as our Florida State Legislature is considering a number of pieces of legislation, including SB 560, which touches on banning chemicals in our food. That's right here with Make America Healthy Again, right? Senate Bill 56, prohibiting weather modification activities. This actually drew the attention of Marla Maples, Trump's former wife, who showed up in Tallahassee to speak on behalf of that legislation. And its House companion bill, HB 0477. Make sure you reach out to your legislators and let them know to support those bills. Of course, there was the signing of the new immigration bill recently after a few attempts, honestly, to get it right.
That's correct. One has to wonder what took so long to get this right. The first attempt to fix illegal immigration in our state was at the hands of state leadership Speaker of the House, Danny Perez, and State Senate President Al Britton. While Senators Joe Gruters and Randy Fine presented the bill, it did nothing to help the deportation of illegal immigrants in the state of Florida and attempted to give immigration over to the Agricultural Commissioner, Wilton Simpson. The governor's bill that he presented gave resources to law enforcement to better work with ICE and the federal government. Apparently, both the governor and the state leadership are singing Kumbaya now as they have agreed to the terms of the new bill.
That's right, Allie. And the new bill creates a state board of immigration enforcement, requires local communities to cooperate with federal immigration officials, and increases penalties for immigrants without legal status who enter the state of Florida and who commit crimes. The measure also repeals a law that allowed thousands of students without legal status to pay in-state tuition at public colleges and universities. It makes it a state crime for someone without legal status to enter Florida, a misdemeanor on the first offense, and felony after that.
Yes, and the bill also will provide more beds for immigrants detained for deportation. That includes a $298 million to equip and train local law enforcement and to reimburse local communities for costs not covered by the federal government. It would pay bonuses to law enforcement officers who participate in immigration and customs enforcement operations as well. Now, while Floridians are the obvious champion in the signing of this bill, one has to wonder how hard it would have been to author this bill from the very start. We here at CCN certainly hope we are not witnessing legislative theater in Tallahassee. We are grateful that our leaders got it done and are working together to back the Trump administration's policies. Unfortunately, Representative Mike Caruso, who lost his committee seat due to not voting in lockstep for the first botched attempt at immigration legislation, is not getting his seat back. We should let our elected leadership in Tallahassee know how we feel about that treatment. Also, in Tallahassee, Governor DeSantis is hinting around at lowering our property taxes. Any major change of property taxes would require a constitutional amendment and would likely not go before voters until 2026. DeSantis said he plans to work with legislators over the next year and a half to craft his overhaul. He did not elaborate, however, about how large of a homestead exemption he'll push for, but said he wants to offset the rising cost of homes interest rates, and homeowners insurance.
Well, that's a good thing. But one thing that's definitely on the hearts and minds of Floridians is, Allie, fixing our insurance crisis here in the state of Florida and tackling the state-subsidized insurance company known as Citizens. So many issues to tackle here. Let's see if that is something on the governor's agenda as well. Moving to closer here in Sarasota County, we are seeing issues with the Sarasota Board of County Commission, where the developers of the Hi-Hat community were supposed to pay the bill for any road expansion taking place due to the large housing developments occurring off Bee Ridge Road and Fruitville Roads off the interstate. Commissioner Tom Knight took to social media to expose internal documents obtained by a citizen during a public records request that allegedly show former commissioners, people no longer sitting on the bench, negotiating on behalf of the developers to put taxpayers, that's you, on the hook for the expansion costs.
Wow.
Thankfully, this past week, the Sarasota County Commissioners voted unanimously, 5-0, to halt that project. That, Allie, is some good news.
Absolutely good news. Leaders leading the way like we have elected them to do is well done, so thank you. The same cannot be said of our GOP leadership, however, here in Florida, as the attempt to remove Maga conservatives from the party continues. That's right. Under the direction of Florida GOP Chair Evan Power, the Florida GOP is now entangled in a court case against the Florida Republican Assembly. And what are the two battling, you might ask? Who is entitled to use the word Republican?
Whoa.
And what type of Republican you are allowed to fraternize with? Very interesting. In all seriousness, Evan Power has led the Florida GOP into breaking Florida Statute 103.081 when he encouraged the Florida GOP to revoke membership for anyone who also was a member of the Florida Republican Assembly, the FRA. The problem is that the Florida statute protects the FRA as it was formed 27 years ago.
You just can't make this stuff up. And what's worse, now local REC members are being blocked from participating in local GOP meetings at the county level. Right here in Sarasota, Sarasota County GOP leader Jack Brill has blocked precinct committee men and women from attending monthly REC meetings and even blocked members from voting in the last REC leadership election. Talk about voter suppression at its finest. Jack Brill, the leader of the GOP here in Sarasota, may have single-handedly been the orchestrator of the largest voter suppression ever seen here in Florida. We'll stay vocal on this issue and make sure to keep you updated as it progresses.
We are taking a quick break, commercial break here in a few seconds, but next up is Raj Dorsami with Suncoast Community.
So Joey is our middle child. We have 3 kids. He's 13 years old, and he was born with a chromosome deletion, and he was diagnosed with autism and intellectual disability. When he was 8 years old, he was diagnosed with epilepsy, and he started having seizures almost once a week. When Vic told us about this treatment, and since he had his first treatment, he hasn't had a seizure. He's been seizure-free for over 3 months, and it's been a miracle, really.
I wasn't 100% sure if it was going to work on the level that it did, but you know, I can say now, without a doubt, like it really, really works. Nothing else has worked as good as this.
Right. He's been much happier. Like, he's had a lot more energy. He's just been in a positive mood, talking more,
interacting more, and just more vocal, and also very funny.
Right, and Joey will always be Joey. We love Joey the way he is. We just want him to be happy and healthy. He taught me patience, true unconditional love.
Acceptance,
yeah,
right? I mean, Joey's like an angel.
He is an angel.
This is Raj Dorsami with CCN News. What if the very organization meant to protect your community was instead forcing people out of their homes? That's what some residents here claim is happening. This is the case that we're going to be looking at tonight, where we have the story of Bob, a 91-year-old veteran who says that he's been targeted, bullied, and taken advantage of by the board members of his homeowners association.
Bob has lived in this Sarasota County Homeowners Association for over 30 years. Says he's seen firsthand how the H.O.A. operates, and he believes it's intentional.
And I was told to remove the United States flag. As a veteran of the Korean War era, I really took offense to that, and I fought it. So I won. I noticed after that, that the harassment started. Frankly, it never stopped.
For Bob, that was just the beginning.
My wife tripped over a raised sidewalk near the entrance to our property here. She was told by a medical doctor, a surgeon, that she needed a knee operation. We went to the management company and to the person who was responsible for this particular property. And she denied that there was any issue with raised sidewalks, and clearly the H.O.A. was not going to pay for the operation, which was necessary. My wife had the operation. She suffered quite seriously, and to this day still does. She has a walker. We settled out of court for $30,000. We netted $3,000. The management representative who turned us down initially was almost fired. That woman made our life a living hell. She has never gotten off our case until she was finally fired here a month or so ago for some deficiency, which is a big secret.
Most recently, Bob says that he has had to replace his lawn several times due to his irrigation system being damaged, through no fault of his own.
I believe it goes like this. The original lawn of 30+ years died because the irrigation system was broken. I was absent my home, and that lawn died. It was replaced in 22 with a sodded lawn, which subsequently died.
How does an irrigation system that had been working for years suddenly break? It turns out that there was some repair work done on the irrigation system for a common area at the instruction of the H.O.A.
As they dug up the community pipe, which was PVC, they broke mine.
And you didn't know the extent of the damage, so you kept replacing the lawn.
Yeah.
And now, during all this time, while your lawn is in disrepair, were you getting fined by the H.O.A.?
Oh, yes.
Trish, Bob's daughter, found out about her father's plight and has now moved herself from out of state to help him. She says that her father is now being charged an 18% interest rate on over $10,000 in fines levied on Bob for the dead lawn.
You know, my dad gets a letter that they're going to start charging him, and I saw it. It said 18%. I talked to one of the people in the board, and she said, "Oh no, it's not 18%." I said, "It is 18%. I saw the letter from the homeowners association,
no, the
management company, right?" And I just thought that was just ridiculous.
I never had the opportunity to speak to the H.O.A. or the management company one-on-one or whatever to explain the process, how I got into this fix with the sidewalk, with the lawn, how interconnected those two things are. All of a sudden, I think the first bill I was aware of was over $2,000.
Bob is not the only one. Patrick, who lives in the same community, says the rules are written to silence homeowners.
It's written by attorneys, and that's who benefits from it.
Only the rich homeowners with enough money survive. Those on a fixed income like Bob cannot.
If you want to have any voice, a member wants to have any voice in reality, they have to hire an attorney. Because the way it's structured, the board has all the authority, the members have really nothing. They claim they'll let you have the 3 minutes at a meeting to speak, but here again, they stonewall you and shut you off.
We were told that the intimidation tactics have forced some owners to actually sell their home and leave.
Several have moved, and because of the H.O.A. That's an absolute fact.
Regarding Bob, the 91-year-old veteran we interviewed, Patrick had this to say.
My understanding is that there's some irrigation that goes to a common area, and this irrigation line passes through their property. And they were working on it, and the part that passes through their property also affected their irrigation system. And when they were working on the one for the common area, they broke or disrupted the one that was for his yard. And he complained to the management company, and they would not fix it. They would not repair it. And he is kind of strapped for cash, So he was unable to repair it, and he lost his yard. And then they started to fine him excessively because his yard was dying. And they didn't, when he tried to explain his situation, they would only give you 3 minutes at a meeting to discuss his side of the story. And during that 3 minutes, they interrupted him several times, so he really didn't even get 3 minutes. So it's a form, it boils down to a form of bullying tactics.
How I feel about it is I think it's abuse. I think it's elder abuse, and I think it needs to stop. You know, I asked them to be a little bit considerate with the fact that my dad is, you know, at the time 89 years old, 90, almost 91, and they have no compassion for our neighbors and this neighborhood.
Coastal Conservative News was given these documents, showing a response from the Seniors versus Crime, of the Florida Attorney General, and official statements corroborating Bob's claims. We also reached out to 2 board members who then had their attorney contact us. When we asked the attorney for their side of the story, the attorney said she had no comment. Back to you, Michelle and Ali.
Thank you, Raj. Next, we have our Political Pulse segment where Allie and I speak with former State Representative Joe Harding. Hi, guys. Welcome to the Political Pulse here on CCN with Ali Legge. We are so wonderfully welcomed to have our guest, former State Representative Joe Harding. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Harding.
Thank you for having me on.
Wonderful. Ali, I think you did a lot of work through Moms for America with the Parental Bill of Rights. And Moms for America, Moms for Liberty had a lot to do with that. So you and Joe are not strangers, correct?
That is absolutely correct. We actually helped him pass the Parental Rights and Education Bill, which got a lot of heat in the media. It even made national news. And I remember, Joe, you saying in one of your interviews, I never thought I would have to have this conversation nationwide about parents knowing what their children are being educated. And I mean, we thank you so much for being a champion for parents and education in general. And what that fight was like for you must have been insane. But before we get there, I wanted to ask you, could you maybe just give us a little bit of background before you decided to put your hat in the ring to run for state, but also why you decided to do it? And then we can get into everything else.
Yeah, so I was, well, first, thank you for all the help that you were on the Parental Bill of Rights and the moms and that you helped bring and committee. And I don't think our bill passes without so much public support. As you saw, the opposition is really good about drumming up noise and making it feel overwhelming. I think we're starting to realize that they're not in the majority that they portray, but they are very good at intimidating lawmakers and politicians. And I think just having some counter to that of real life moms and parents was really, really helpful on the Parent Bill of Rights, and then also my parental bill as well. I think that, so to answer your question though, I ran for office because I felt like there weren't enough regular people serving in public office that were happening, but I always told people when I ran, I have the perspective as an employer, an employee, a parent, a son, everything that's at stake in our country. I don't come from money. Everything I've had to do has been self-made. And so I felt like I had a unique perspective. My background was construction. I've managed a lot of large projects. I understood a large budget. But the one thing I heard a lot that ultimately kind of pushed me to the edge of running was I would hear every day people say that, we can't find qualified people to do whatever the trade was. And it was, a trade that we often take for granted, whether it's the guy that does the AC work in your house or the welder or, that works in a weld shop. And so that was one of my first things, because I felt like there wasn't a politician, and not that I felt like that was the reality. There was not a politician at that time, I would say at any level, really talking about the importance of students that did not go to college and where did they end up in the workforce and what that need was. So I had a lot of perspective on that. And it was actually used against me when I ran that I didn't have a college degree. Like that was some terrible thing. And, so I felt like I brought a lot of that real life hardship and experience of just what it's like to be an average person that doesn't come from money, doesn't have a high education, a huge pedigree, and has to earn things on their own. So I ran as a business owner and a dad. I thought the dad part was important. I didn't realize how important it was until I started to serve in office, and then I realized that was the most important part. And the first year I was elected, I did pass a bill that was a big part of the trade programs that we're starting to see expand right now in Florida. I think there's still a lot to do on that, but I that first session made some progress, and I was really excited about that, and didn't really know what was next. And then at that time, well, let me go back a little bit. So when I ran, I always said that I didn't run to be for a job. I ran to make a difference. So if I couldn't, there wasn't something that I could uniquely make a difference on, I didn't have a reason to run for office. It took away from everything that was important to me, like my job, my career, being a dad. So I never looked at politics as a career. So I get the bill passed the first year that had to do with vocational education. I was excited about that, and I'm kind of looking around what's next. And then at that time, the Bill of Rights, the Parent Bill of Rights, was getting moved through the process by Representative Graw, and that I did not know how bad the wokeism was in our public school. I really didn't know, and I didn't know how powerful the voices behind a lot of it were, and probably the most important part, I didn't know how much money was being made by these special groups, special interest groups.
Did it shock you at all when you found out?
Oh yeah, I mean it did. I still would say the most shocking was when I saw, and it happened during the Parent Bill of Rights. I saw public school buses that brought kids to the Capitol from districts all over the state, and I'm like, what? Why are there teachers here like as chaperones, and these kids are just spewing hate at us, and they're protesting at that time the Parent Bill of Rights, which it's just so fundamental and such common sense.
Right.
Yeah, it was really shocking. Then I started looking up who some of these people were that ran some of these groups, like Equality Florida, and realized like these guys are scam artists. And that was a lot of that was just shocking to me. I didn't realize how bad it was. I really didn't. So that's kind of why I ran in the first place, which is feeling like we didn't have enough, common sense, regular people in office. And then I quickly realized what we needed really was parents in office, and that kind of transitioned me into the next phase of what I did while I was elected.
That's so true. And I remember I was with Moms for Liberty at the time. And so I remember you working very closely with January Littlejohn and her story that obviously tears at the heartstrings of people. We did, there was a lot of exposure during that time. You were able to fight for parental rights. I thank you as a parent. I know Allie does too. Parents across the state do. Where did that lead after the bill was signed? And I thought a lot of this rhetoric from the left would kind of fall by the wayside, but not so with someone like you who actually stood in the gap there. The attacks didn't stop, correct?
Yeah, I think I would say I would never, I would have never imagined how aggressive some of these attack groups were and how low they would go. During the time that my bill was moving through the legislature, the bill that ultimately the left called the Don't Say Gay bill, and obviously that wasn't the name of the bill, it wasn't the intent of the bill, but that's what these groups do. They rebrand things, and for a long time conservatives just took it and it was like, well, it's part of being a martyr. You almost just felt like a martyr instead of fighting back. And I would say for the first half of that bill, that's what I felt like my role was. Just stand on the principle of what you're doing, take the blows, be the martyr. And about halfway through, I realized, like, this is really dumb. Like, this is what we do. Yes, we'll pass the bill. It'll become law. We'll help protect kids and we'll protect parents. But we shouldn't be taking this. We're not in the minority.
Right.
But during that time, I had a tornado that actually went through my neighborhood and damaged my house some. If you ever just get bored and you just Google, like, my name and tornado, these groups went nuts over this. Like they try to dox where I live. They tried to say that my house got destroyed. So then that turned into like a Daily Mail hit piece about that I was, and it actually had I think the Daily Mail article had like a rainbow tornado saying that God had punished me because of my bill. So, I mean, it went so nuts. To like calling donors. I think that was probably the crazier thing. I had a guy who was a real estate agent in my district. He probably got it for whatever reason they attached him. I think I had worn a hat, maybe in a picture on social media. This is how petty these people are, and they have nothing to do all day. And because they're activists, that a lot of times, like, they're paying their wages. Either they're on government programs or they're some fake charity that's set up. Like, I don't know how everyday regular people that work for a living have time to do some of the things they do. But somehow they found this guy's name, and they were calling his office, like spamming him. And then that was not a one-off. That was a common thing that would happen. I'd go through my donor list. All of this was just, they would say that I was canceling gay kids and spewing a lot of this rhetoric. For whatever reason, most of the other lawmakers, even though they voted for the bill, they escaped a lot of this. I think part of it was I was very non-apologetic on every interview, everything I ever did about the bill. And I did take every interview I could get. So sometimes putting myself kind of in enemy territory. So it definitely put me in harm's way. So I went through, those were all kind of small things, but they were just the nature of it.
Right.
And then, ultimately I made decisions that put myself at risk, and some business things that I did. And I would say that there's not another person in the country that took a EIDL SBA loan, paid it back in full 2 years prior, that got prosecuted by the federal government. There is not another person that happened to, and that happened to me. And I've had to own up. I've had to own that. I've not tried to run. I've tried to take responsibility and said, that yes, I made decisions that were not the right decisions. I try to make that right, and a lot of that stuff with the SBA was very confusing, but doesn't make it right. And so I tried to, be very public, and I put out public statements. I resigned because I didn't want to be a distraction for the rest of the legislature. But that did not stop the attacks. I was getting death threats along the way regularly during my bill. A lot of them wouldn't be like specific death threats where law enforcement could do much with it. Most of it would be just wishing you dead. But that continued after my indictment got announced. My indictment was announced by the federal government before I left the courthouse. They put out a press release. So there were so many things where they wanted to make me a public case.
Wait a minute. Did they know that you were? Oh my good Lord.
Yeah. So they put out on their website, a press release immediately. People oftentimes now they get indicted. It happens every day. Maybe a couple weeks later they put a press release out or something like that. In my case, it was almost immediate.
That's insane.
So again, that's the balance. I've had to own this. I'm not going to sit here and try to make excuses and say like, oh, I did nothing wrong. That's not the position I'm taking, because that's not the right position. But I can point to the anomalies that it's an anomaly that I got prosecuted. It's an anomaly that they made it so public the way they did. And then ultimately I had to serve 4 months, got a 4-month sentence, which I served 3 months and 7 days in federal prison.
Oh my
Again,
goodness.
for a loan that I had taken 2 years prior to my prosecution. Just the prosecution came out about, the indictment came about just a couple months after my bill was signed into law. And then
Sounds a lot like lawfare.
yeah, and then so all of that happened. I got 2 years. 2 years after, I had to go through a whirlwind of 24 hours where I lost the business that I was a part of. Obviously my public office and all of that immediately. And, I'm still recovering from that. That's a major life-changing process.
Well, and listening to your story too, Joe, knowing what we've known over the last 4 years and kind of what Trump has gone through and other people like him, it resonates differently now than maybe if we would have heard it a while back. I think it's like, oh my gosh, here's another case of this. Again, not saying that we're all perfect, but you and I both know there are people that go into office to make $40,000 a year and end up having $7 million in their bank account. And nobody asks those questions of where that comes from. Right. Yet it's like you have a target on your back. So I kind of want to know, what do you see going forward for yourself? Do you have any other future plans, and what can people, because you've done so much for the parents here in the state of Florida, what can we do for you?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that question. You hit on something there that it's not answering your direct question right away, which I will, but I think you mentioned something there that I think more people are aware that there is selective prosecution happening in our country every day. Trump brought such a public, because we've never seen lawfare that public, that blatant, that unapologetic like we've seen with him day after day. And I think now we're maybe going to start to understand that a little better. Hopefully we're going to get more backstories. Most importantly, I'm hoping people are held accountable for what happened to him. But I do think, I'm hoping that more conservatives wake up now and realize, like, this is not a one-off. Trump's not a one-off. This has been happening to pro-lifers. It's been happening to outspoken influencers. Because here's the thing. If you prosecute, which at the time that my case happened, just a few months before, someone who had taken millions of dollars and not paid it back, had no plan to pay it back, actually stole the money, had, if I counted 5 press releases, articles written about this person, that's probably maybe high. My case, which
Wow.
is a case of $150,000 EIDL loan, which has to be paid back,
Payback, right.
that I took and paid back well within the terms of the loan, but because of the issues on the application, it was prosecuted. If I told you there were hundreds of stories that still go on, I still get mentioned in articles now.
Mm-hmm.
It it makes you realize, like, okay, sometimes it's maybe not about the crime; it's more about the how do we create the most noise. Um, and again, one last thing with mine, and I'm not trying to sit here and make this about my case, but one of the things that was shocking to me was that in the end, the court ruled that there was no loss to the government. So why are we here? Most crimes are
Right.
based on someone was impacted negatively. So there's no loss to the government, and gave me no restitution. So I had to pay nothing back because I owed nothing and nothing was owed. So a 2-year process. Something that sat for 2 years and then they decided to prosecute. Obviously cost the government a lot of money, but because they
Yeah.
realized there wasn't a true loss to the government, in the end they did not give me that, which I'm grateful for. But at the same time, it's, how does that not show the contradiction? And then he gave me a sentence, even though I was well below the guidelines of getting a prison sentence. But because what was said in the hearing was I was a public person and I needed to serve time for public, um, basically for a public deterrence. So
Oh,
I would say that
wow.
what you asked me what the future is and how you can help me. And I don't know exactly. I've been through a lot. My family's been through a lot, and my main focus has been getting my feet on the ground. Rebuilding a livelihood, and I gave up. I gave up a lot when I ran in the first place. With my business and things and my time, and I ran for a 2-year campaign, which is normal. A lot of politicians do that, but there was a long window of time I sacrificed, and so I'm having to. I'm grateful. Like, God's put amazing people in my life. My family has been incredible going through all of this. So I'm really grateful. But I think my main focus right now is I want to be able to help others. I faced probably the most public beating you can take from someone who didn't have I don't have a big following social media wise or any of that. I never got into politics to try to build a following. So not having that, you just had to take a lot of beatings. Even conservative media would write articles that were really unfair about my case, and wouldn't reach out to me for comment because it was so easy for them, because it was like, what am I going to do? Tweet to my 3,000 followers that they're wrong? Like, I don't have hundreds of thousands of followers.
And it's
So,
not like you weren't accessible. I mean, every time I've reached
oh
out to
yeah.
you, you have been very responsive. So,
I've tried to always be accessible, but I think that I want to try to help other people that go through similar hardships. I mean, I was on the brink of suicide. There were points in this process where I didn't have $5 to pay to go to my Dollars volleyball game. Like, there is not a struggle on this journey that I haven't been through, and I've had an opportunity to share that side of the story. Just forget the legal side, just the hardship side, and kind of my own testimony of faith and how how God's helped me through so much of this and the people He's put in my life. And so right now I'm focused on that part. I want to be able to help other people. I've had some people call me lately that are going some really hard things. I shared my story to about 400 men a couple months ago, and there wasn't a day that went by for a couple weeks. I had to get a call from somebody that said, "Hey, I heard your story, and here's something and just would open up the heart and share something really powerful to me
Wow.
about their own hardships," and I was able to encourage them.
That's
So
amazing.
short term, I hope that God can help me with that. I think that, um, dads are, parents in general, are really important. I've always had a heart for dads. I think that I know how important they are to our kids, and so um, I think that if there's something I can do to help other dads, and whether it's something legal they're going through or just hardships of life, to be able to give them some hope, that's
Right.
really my focus. And then on politics, um, I, I am really interested when I watch. We're seeing so much about Doge and the corruption that we got in
Yeah.
our federal government, and I'm really excited to watch that. But I would say that that's happening at every level of government.
Yes, it
Mm.
does.
Right now.
We
And
have
even in
spoken about
Florida,
that at length, Michelle and I. And we actually are trying to petition our governor currently to have a Florida
yeah.
Department of
And you
Government
need it
Well,
in your county government. You need it at your school board
Absolutely.
level because these NGO tentacles stretch all the way down to the local government. We know
well,
that.
yeah, and how did we not see it in Florida when we were trying to pass a parental bill of rights and Disney is working against this, and then you realize like Disney's one of the
Exactly.
biggest beneficiaries, and of course that was exposed a little bit in Florida, but they're one of many. I mean, that was just they
Yep.
were the easiest
Yep.
to point out. So
Now, do you think that what you've been through fit what your bill or the backlash that your bill had received? Me personally, I think you were treated so totally unfair, especially
Yeah.
because the bill language was very simple. Could you
yeah.
just explain it really fast for some of our viewers who may not be from Florida that are listening to
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
your
So
story?
when we passed the parental bill of rights in Florida the year prior, and after it passed, January Little John's story um, came about just after that parental bill of rights, and her story was that her daughter had been approached by people in the school system to try to help transition her daughter's gender, essentially because they targeted her. I mean, that's the reality of that. So when that happened, we realized like, hey, we not really addressed um, something really fundamental, which is that what my bill did, it was really only a couple sentences long. It just said that there should not be any decisions that have mental or physical impact on your child without the parent being involved. So anything, if you're going to talk to my kid about changing their pronouns or changing their name, I mean, all these things that I'm sure you all have talked at length about, where you have school
Mhm.
districts that change the name of a student because, oh, that's what they prefer to be called at home or at school, but at home it's not welcome, or withholding information from parents because they're like, oh, well, the parent maybe it would be abusive, and then we found out like how abused that word is being used. That like people
Yeah.
Yep.
can call a parent abusive just because the parents just all they're wanting to do is just to be involved in the kid and child, and like they require that their child go to church, and that could be called abusive, and some really ridiculous things. I don't think we put enough attention on how evil some of these groups are. Um,
Mhm.
that target kids. I know my bill was moving through the legislature. I had a parent call me, and my district included Levy County. And at the high school in Levy County, we had a math teacher passing out a one-page sheet, and the sheet was your gender. Well, it's actually a substitute teacher. Let me clarify that because I'm sure there's somebody that'll correct that. But it was a substitute teacher for that day, but passed out a pronoun preference sheet and a math class. So, like, I'm in Levy County, as red as it gets, Republican district, and you
Yeah.
have
Oh.
someone doing that in a school district. So we know that was happening everywhere. So the bill was that don't come to my kid and try to change anything about my child without
Yeah.
including me as the parent. It was pretty simple, and it was like the actual bill is like 3 sentences long. It's so short.
That's amazing. Very basic. It's like common
I
sense
know.
went out the window.
Very common sense.
Yes.
Allie and I have long said I could never see my parents putting up with this. And I don't know how. It's like we were a little bit asleep at the wheel. We would never think somebody would do this. So I thank you so much for coming on, Mr. Harding. Do you have social media or anything where people can follow you to keep up with your story or that they can reach out to you?
Yes, I have Twitter. I do have Twitter. It's at Joseph B. Harding, or I guess it's X, right? So you can find me
I,
there. I don't post a whole lot, but I do intend on posting more to encourage people, but also I do want to call out some of the irregularities in lawfare. It's not just the president. So I hope in time to be able to do that. And then, even within Florida, some concerns I have here, the process, seeing the underbelly a little bit while I was in office. I hope to be able to have a voice a little bit more on that. But I definitely reach out to me, and anyone that's going through anything hard, whether it's, it could be, had nothing to do with anything legal, but just in life, if you think that, your life's too hard and it's not worth living, take a second, send me a message. I'm sure I can encourage you, because I've been through that, kind of faced that edge. And then the reality is that it is worth living. And the hard days, and I had some really hard ones, I would say that the day you turn yourself in is one of the hardest days. And I thought that was going to be the worst day and I'd never make it get through. And here that was, a long time ago now. And we've made it through and we're doing okay, and right now, a year ago, I was sitting in federal prison, and I thought this day would never come, and we're out of there, thank God. And, and so, I would just encourage people, if they're going through that and they feel like they don't have anybody to talk to, send me a message. So I'd be glad to encourage them.
Thank you so much for that. And God bless you for what you're doing. What the enemy means to destroy us, God's going to use to prop us up. And I think part of that is telling your story and resonating with other people who, whatever they're going through in their life, it can seem like a dark time. And if you might be that one voice that can reach in there and make a difference.
That's right.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Harding. We're going to have you back on because we just need a little more time. So thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Let's hear what the students are working on in the Student Report.
Welcome back to the Student Report. I'm Carlo. Today's topic is tariffs, and my colleague Max will be going around the school asking what students think about them.
I'm here with Daniel. Do you use social media?
A little bit.
Do you think your favorite influencer should be talking about tariffs?
Probably, yeah.
And do you think they're qualified to talk about tariffs?
I mean, it's free speech. I don't know why not.
I'm here with
Antonio.
Chloe.
Are you guys are on social media?
Yeah.
And do you think your favorite influencer should be talking about tariffs?
No.
No.
So do you think they're qualified?
No.
No.
I'm here with
Isabella.
Do you think tariffs are an effective way to change Americans' buying habits?
Yep. Because people won't buy the more expensive things.
I'm here with
Bella.
And
Julia.
And say you go to the store one day and your favorite good, like your favorite groceries, is 25% more expensive. Are you still buying that good?
Probably, yeah. If it's worth it.
If it's worth it. Have you guys heard about the recent tariffs?
Not really. No, not really.
I'm here with
Will.
And have you heard about the recent tariffs?
I haven't been watching the news yet, but probably been worse recently.
Do you understand what a tariff is?
Yes, taxes.
Are you for or against tariffs? Like a tax on an imported good?
It could be a good thing or a bad thing. It can use for good or it can use for bad stuff. Depends what you use it for.
That's definitely true. Thank you.
Zoltan.
Do you think the United States should prioritize free trade or focus more on tariffs?
I think they should focus more on tariffs because, it's better. Jacob Watkins.
And say, you go to the store one day and your favorite goods are 20% more expensive. Are you still buying those goods?
No, I'm not buying them.
Okay, so have you heard about the recent tariffs?
No, I haven't. Liam.
And do you think tariffs are going to help increase jobs in America?
What's a tariff?
So basically a tariff is a tax on an imported good. So do you think that would help increase jobs in America?
I don't really see the connection. Cooper?
And have you heard about the recent tariffs?
I have not. Oh yeah, from the president?
Are you against them or are you for them?
I mean, maybe the ones on China, but I don't know about Canada and Mexico.
Okay, and why do you say that?
A lot of the Chinese labor should be moved here, but or the labor the cheap labor in China could be moved over to the U.S., but I don't know if we should be taxing or tariffing Mexico and Canada.
Thomas?
Have you heard of the recent tariffs?
Yes, I have.
Do you think tariffs are an effective way to boost like employment in the United States?
Theoretically, I think so, but they also have drawbacks, but that's like with every single decision. But I think the drawbacks are more than there are for good. There are more drawbacks than good. I don't really think 25% on Canada and Mexico is like needed. I think like maybe like at least 15%, but I don't think 25%.
Yeah, Sean Arellano. Do you think tariffs are an effective way to increase production in the United States and like jobs inside of the United States?
Yes.
Why is that?
I don't even know.
Abby?
Have you heard of the recent tariffs?
Yes.
So what have you heard about them?
That like things that come from other countries are going to be like taxed.
And do you think that's an effective way for the government to allow more income and more jobs in the United States?
I think so, yes. Zoe?
Have you heard about the recent tariffs?
No.
So since you haven't heard about them, do you think your favorite like social media influencer should be talking about them?
Yes.
And you think they're qualified for that?
Yes. It's a pastor.
Who's your favorite influencer?
Stephen Furtick.
Just like last time, we got lots of great responses from our peers. Tune in next week for the next episode of the Student Report.
Imagine rewinding to 2020.
Parents obviously can equip their kid to go to school however they want, but there shouldn't be any coercive mandates.
Local school board members made a firm decision enforcing mandates that disregarded the voices of concerned parents.
This virus is going after our young children.
The emergency school board meeting in Sarasota dissolved into chaos as the board discussed mandating masks for students, which ultimately passed tonight.
Refusing to back down, thousands gathered at the Hollow, determined to secure exemptions for their kids. With the support of dedicated doctors, they navigated every path to shield their children from mandates. Yet, despite these united efforts, a darker challenge surfaced. Doctors who issued exemptions became targets, some even losing their jobs for standing by their convictions. That's when the decision was made, a bold new vision to create a sanctuary for children's health and a support system for parents' rights. Thus, We the People Health and Wellness Center was born, founded on a mission to serve, to support, and to protect. This vision has since expanded, aligning with the Make America Healthy Again movement and incorporating the most advanced treatment modalities. Additionally, We the People Health and Wellness Center has launched a series of transformative community-based events, each featuring a trusted expert. In December, Dr. Joseph Ladapo spoke about his new book to a packed audience. Next, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, in an intimate lunch and learn. Still to come, Dr. Pierre Corey, Dr. Brian Artis, plus others. The new management, doctors, and staff of We the People Health and Wellness Center stand with you, ensuring that no parent will ever have to face medical tyranny alone again. We are here to empower, to inform, and to support you for a healthier community.
Great work, Max and Carlo. Now here is our Medical Minute on CCN.
Hi, Dr. Scott. I have a question for you. My question is, what are some practical tips for strengthening your immune system naturally, including vitamins, supplements, and lifestyle habits?
Excellent question. And the key to a healthy lifestyle is developing a strong immune system. And very important with that is your lifestyle, and that you are eating properly, especially that you're not doing any seed oils, processed or super processed food, and that you're exercising regularly to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Here at We the People, we recommend biomarkers, looking for early insulin resistance so that you avoid chronic diseases. And for also to help build up your immune system, you should be on a daily vitamin D3 with K2. That regulates your immune system. You combine that with magnesium, usually about 400 milligrams, because it helps absorb the vitamin D3. Also, magnesium is responsible for about 300 biological functions in the body, so very key. You do that with zinc is helpful. little vitamin C, maybe a gram a couple times a day as an antioxidant, because as we metabolize our food, we produce a lot of free radicals, which leads to aging and damage of other cells. So these antioxidants are very helpful. And we have also a ton of other supplements that you can that we encourage people to look at depending on their age and other issues, such as alpha lipoic acid is something that we have a ton of as we're young and then grow out of, but it's very key to mitochondrial function. And methylene blue is another one that's excellent for mental health. It reverses things like dementia, but it's fabulous for just building up your immune system, fighting, diseases, and we, recommend that.
Thank you, Dr. Scott.
That's it for us here at CCN. Make sure you follow us on social media, Rumble, and YouTube. And if you have a story you think needs exposure, reach out to us at contact@coastalconservativenews.com.
That's right. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.